Karen's pulse raced as the shadows twisted and writhed around her. The figure, now clearer but still draped in darkness, spoke again. "I'm here to help you." It had the warmth of Mark's voice, yet there was a hollow echo that made each word tremble in the air. "Mark?" She could hardly choke out the name, confusion and dread intertwining like snakes in her stomach. "Is that really you?" "Trust me, Karen. We have to escape before they take Ella," he urged, glancing over his shoulder where the dolls and their ghastly laughter surged, hungry for her daughter's soul. In the brief moment of clarity, she could see the glimmer of hope in Mark's eyes, but within the shadows behind him, shapes unfurled, whispering curses. They thrummed with an energy that clawed at her sanity. "But what do I do?" she pleaded, battling the growing despair. "Follow me. I found a way out." Without thinking, Karen leaped toward him, grasping his hand, her heart soaring with desperate hope. But just as she did, a wave of icy dread washed over her. The dolls recoiled, their laughter slicing through her thoughts like a knife. The figures at the door moved forward, and in that instant, the fear morphed into a realization that froze her blood. Mark's features twisted, and the familiarity fractured like glass. The shadows enveloped him, and he grinned a monstrous, malevolent grin. "Join us, Karen." His voice faded, replaced by the chilling melody of the dolls, closing in around them. Join us, she pulled away, shock rippling through her as she stumbled backward. Mark was gone, replaced by the oozing darkness that seemed to taunt her. The dolls leered at her from the corners, their eyes burning bright in the dim light, nearly glowing with a predatory hunger. The air thickened again, born of fear and dread, as the figures advanced. She turned on her heel and screamed, "Ella!" Panic seized her heart, tightening like a vice as she darted toward where her daughter stood frozen, a mere doll among the chaos. "Mommy, look!" Ella pointed at the door where a creeping shadow seemed to pull closer, its claws elongating like grotesque branches. The figure behind the door morphed, its form a nightmarish blend of human and shadow, its eyes hollow and dark. "No! Ella! Step away from there!" Karen screamed, racing to her. Behind her, the chorus grew louder, ramping up the urgency, their echoing laughter shaking the walls. As she reached Ella, the room roared with sinister energy. The dolls clambered closer, their laughter growing shriller, echoing the grotesque vision of a family gathering turned monstrous. But in a frantic twist of fate, Karen spotted a small window near the ceiling, cracked open just wide enough to allow a sliver of light in. "Hold my hand, Ella. We can climb." In this moment of clarity, her determination surged like fire, igniting her senses. Grabbing her daughter's small hand, they sprinted toward the wall, dodging the grasping dolls which desperately lunged at them, screeching in fury. Just as they reached the base of the wall, something cold wrapped around her ankle, pulling her back. Karen gasped, falling forward. She felt Ella's grip slip as dread twisted her insides. "No!" Ella reached for her, voice bright but trembling. "Mommy! Climb, Ella! Please!" Karen screamed, her heart pumping with urgency. She forced herself to rise, wrenching her ankle free from the icy grip, but the dolls continued to claw at her, laughter spilling from their painted lips. As Karen lunged upward, reaching for her daughter, shadows darted past her, and everything seemed to sway. The walls began to pulse, the room spiraling into darkness. Karen's fingers grazed Ella's, but the world was shifting, the sinister dolls closing in. "Mommy! Help!" Desperation clawed at her throat as she prepared to make one last lunge. She had to save Ella, she had to cling to this last strand of hope. But then silence fell. A breathless pause hung in the air. "Let us play." The voice was an echo from the darkest corners, a chorus of mockery and sweet reminders, turning her blood cold, with her heart pounding in her chest. Karen realized that the path ahead may not be an escape at all. What if this was their last chance or the perfect trap? Would the next choice lead to salvation or damnation? As the shadows began their dance again, something in the air changed, and the room spun crazily. The whispers grew louder, surrounding her with dread and seduction. Karen's breath caught. In this nightmarish realm, the real horror had just begun. The shadows pulsed, alive and eager, drawing closer as Karen tried to steady herself. Ella's hand slipped completely from her grasp, and the small girl was now just a few feet away, staring at her mother with wide, terrified eyes. "Mommy. I'm scared." The darkness swirled like a living nightmare, thick and tangible. The laughter of the dolls rose to a furious crescendo, their painted lips stretched impossibly wide, teeth glinting under the dim light. Every sound echoed against the walls, mixing with the chaos in her mind. In that moment, the sudden silence felt like a cruel joke, the calm before an even greater storm. "Stay close to me, Ella. Don't move," Karen shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She could feel the icy breath of the sinister figures clawing at her skin, an urgent whisper urging her to join the madness. She took a step, her heart pounding like a war drum. Clenching her fists, she forced herself forward, determined to reach her daughter before the creeping darkness swallowed her whole. With every step, the ground shifted beneath her feet, an unseen current tugging at the hem of her sanity. The dolls giggled, their symphony filled with mockery, each high-pitched cackle sending shivers down her spine. They loved this. They thrived on fear. The figure at the door bubbled forth, a grotesque silhouette morphing and writhing, featuring too many limbs and too many eyes, hungry for despair. Its mouth twisted into a mirthless grin that seemed to consume the light around it. "Join us, join us, join us," it crooned, weaving through the room. "Get away from us," Karen shouted, channeling every ounce of her maternal strength. And yet, deep inside her, a flicker of doubt sparked. What if they were trapped here forever? Shadows threatened to suffocate her hope, and she could feel her resolve waning. But Ella, her precious daughter, stood still, eyes wide, mirroring the growing fear. "Mommy, please. Hold on, Ella. Just hold on." Taking a breath, Karen lunged forward. She was racing against time, against the darkness that wanted to pull them apart. The icy claws reached out, tearing at the strands of her panic, but she was fueled by an intense need to protect her child. As she was only a few feet away, time seemed to stretch. The laughter intensified, resonating in her head like a relentless drumbeat. Karen felt it, the darkness tried to drown her in a wave of despair. Ella turned, her tiny frame barely a shadow against the vivid horror. "Mommy. Help." In one swift movement, Karen seized Ella's arm, their fingers entwining again, and with a heave, she finally pulled the girl close. But the incantation of shadows intensified, filling the room with a suffocating darkness. The dolls surged, a tide of malevolence crashing around them, and suddenly, Karen's grip faltered. An invisible force yanked at their connection, threatening to separate them once more. "Don't let go," Karen cried, her voice rising above the din. With a primal growl, the figure lunged, its angular limbs extending towards them with nightmarish speed. Karen managed to swing Ella behind her, shielding her with her body. As she braced for impact, she felt a sudden rush. A blast of energy filled the air with static. The dolls screeched, their laughter morphing into cries of anger. In that heartbeat, a crack of light split the darkness, bright and blinding, illuminating the grotesque forms of the dolls and the figure behind them. "Run, Ella. Now!" Karen urged, eyes wide with determination. But would this light lead them to freedom, or would it consume them further into the depths of madness? As they darted forward, the shadows clawed at the edges of their escape, and the laughter rose again, filled with promises of despair and darkness. What waited at the end of the light? Was it salvation or an even deeper horror? The blinding light engulfed them, and for a brief moment, Karen felt hope surge through her veins. It was a fleeting thought, one that twisted quickly into fear as the darkness pulled back, only to reveal another layer of terror. The room around them flickered like a broken film reel, shadows dancing in chaotic rhythms, taunting the pair with a glimpse of their nightmare. Mommy, where are we going? Ella's voice trembled, the innocence of her question slicing through the tension like a knife. Karen didn't answer. Her feet moved instinctively, but the grip didn't feel right. She could still feel tendrils of darkness creeping behind them, reaching out, lunging in desperate attempts to reclaim what had nearly been freed. They darted down the narrow hallway, a place where light dared not linger, walls curving sharply, creating a disorienting feeling that time itself was lost here. Suddenly, the laughter of the dolls faded, but a low growl began to resonate, rumbling through the floor like thunder before a storm. The sound sent jolts of ice down her spine, and she glanced back. The figure, once looming menacingly at the entrance, had multiplied, shadows ejecting out of the crevices along the walls, forming grotesque shapes, all clawing at the thin veil of light above them. Foolish mortals, they hissed in unison. The corridor twisted, bending in ways that defied reason. Karen gritted her teeth, summoning strength she didn't know she had left. Ella, stay close. Don't look back. She warned, pushing her daughter ahead. Mommy. Ella whimpered, her small feet stumbling over the uneven floor. Karen tightened her grip on the girl's hand, feeling the tug of despair trying to break them apart. Each placement of their feet felt like a gamble, the ground beneath became sticky, pulling at their soles like a quicksand of midnight. We have to keep going. Karen shouted, determination lacing her voice. A whisper of doubt curled in the back of her mind. What if they were just running deeper into the trap? Mommy. Ella's voice cracked, panic breaking through. A sudden surge of wind threw Karen against the wall, and she lost her balance. Ella fell, the hand she held slipping away. Ella. Karen's heart nearly stopped. She turned, fear magnifying everything. The world around her narrowed. The shadows swirled, shrieking with laughter again, closing in on Ella's tiny form, isolated in the swirling shadows. Time collapsed into a single heartbeat as Karen lunged forward, pushing through the suffocating darkness. Eyes wide, she reached out, grasping Ella's arm just in time. The shadows recoiled, hissing like a kettle boiling over. Mommy. I thought I was lost. Ella cried, her voice filled with raw terror. Never. I want to let you go. But still, the dark figure loomed nearer, surrounding them. Its multitude of eyes glimmered with malicious intent. Join us, join, it began to chant, and the air thickened, choking them, wrapping around Karen like a vice. Karen caught Ella's frantic gaze, the essence of her child's spirit urging her onward. We have to fight. Just focus on me. We have to push through. The shadows twisted, forming an enticing path alongside their desperate faces. They seemed almost to whisper invitations to serenity amidst the chaos. The figure drew even closer, eager, every tremor vibrating with the promise of despair. Push, push. Karen shouted, unsure how much longer she could maintain the fight against darkness. She could feel herself wavering, every breath heavy with the scent of rot and decay. What lay ahead felt more sinister than escape itself. As light dwindled, the walls began to pulse, and the building shuddered like something alive. Would they find safety, or were they merely entertaining the whims of the dark? In that moment, a brilliant flash exploded in front of them, blinding and confusing. Ella, hold on. The shadows dissolved momentarily into a whirlwind of flickering memories and echoes of laughter, as if revealing the very essence of their fears. Surely, this was not the end. Something lurked, waiting to be unleashed. But what awaited as the darkness surged back? Would salvation turn into a worse fate? The flash enveloped them, more blinding than the sun. Karen shielded her eyes with a trembling hand. Stay close, Ella. She felt the warm grip of her daughter's small hand in hers but could hear nothing but a dull roar. When the light faded, they found themselves in a new room. The walls were lined with faded photographs that seemed to warp under her gaze, faces twisted in agony, mouths open wide in silent screams. The air was thick with mildew and something bitter fear. Mommy, it's cold, Ella whispered, her voice so small it nearly got swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. I know, sweetheart. Just hold on, Karen replied, battling her creeping dread. Something stirred in the corner of the room. A shape, humanoid in form, was huddled against the wall. Its skin glistened like wet asphalt, shadows merging with its grotesque features. Two empty eye sockets stared back at them. It let out a low, rattling breath, a sound that sent a shockwave of terror through Karen. Let us go, she urged firmly, already moving, gripping Ella's hand tighter. As they turned away, she caught a glimpse of the creature's mouth opening, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Join us, it rasped, the voice echoing like wind through dried leaves. Run! Karen yanked Ella into motion, the sound of their frantic footsteps pounding against the wooden floor, reverberating off the walls. They burst through an archway into another corridor. Similar to the first, this hallway twisted unnaturally, almost making the floor tilt under their feet. The low growl from before returned, but now it was joined by whispers, seductive and dark. Stay with us, stay, don't listen. Karen shouted, the words tearing from her throat. She pushed her way through the thickening air, the shadows pressing in on them, clawing at her resolve. Her heart raced, echoing in her ears. She felt trapped, like a rabbit pursued by wolves. Mommy, I can't run anymore. Ella cried, her lungs heaving. Karen turned, desperation clawing at her chest. They had to find safety before the shadows overtook them again. A flicker of light appeared at the end of the corridor, illuminating a doorway and exit. There. She pointed, the energy surging in her veins as they sprinted toward the hint of salvation. Each step was heavy with dread, the low growl growing deeper, more menacing. The shadows intensified, tendrils snapping out, just missing them, they reached the doorway. Karen threw it open, the light nearly blinding them. It was a stark contrast to the darkness they had just escaped. But beyond the door lay a new horror, a room filled with mirrors. Karen stepped inside, but the moment she did, the door slammed shut behind them. The two were bathed in unnatural light, each mirror reflecting a distorted version of their faces, their expressions twisted with fear. In every reflection, shadows loomed ever closer, shadowy hands reaching out through the glass. Mommy, I don't like this. Ella wailed, clutching her mother in panic. Neither do I, Karen muttered, her heart pounding in sync with the way the mirrors vibrated. Each reflection whispered sweet oblivion, promising peace if they would just allow themselves to give in. But she couldn't. She had to fight for Ella. The mirrors rippled, and she could see something moving within them, a darker reflection. It wasn't merely a reflection but a being, eyes glowing with malice. Join us, it echoed, the sound wrapping around her like ice. A new surge of panic ripped through Karen. We won. We won. The mirrors rattled violently, and with a blinding flash, everything dissolved. They found themselves thrown back into the dim hallway, the creatures closing in, eyes piercing and hungry. Mommy. Ella's voice trembled again, the shadows falling heavier, a weight that threatened to crush their spirits. Hold on. Karen yelled, feeling the desperation reach a fever pitch. But the shadowy figures shifted, whispering of despair and yearning. Could they truly escape this torment, or would they be drawn deeper into the darkness that promised release at a terrible cost? As they stumbled forward, a chilling laugh echoed behind them, taunting, "You cannot run from your fate." The corridor ahead twisted. Was it another trap, or could it lead to true freedom? The hallway twisted like a living serpent, and dread coiled tighter around Karen's heart. Each footfall echoed louder than the last, blending with the dissonant whispers that seemed to crawl in from the walls. Fate awaits, they breathed, and there's no escape. Where are we going? Ella's small voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Karen squeezed her hand, forcing herself to step faster, even as terror clawed at her throat. I don't know, but we have to keep moving, she replied, her voice breaking. The walls seemed to pulse, a dark heartbeat that resonated through the air. Time felt distorted. Had they been wandering for minutes or hours? Panic gnawed at the edges of her calm. Ahead, another door flickered ominously, light pooling beneath it like spilled ink. Shadows flickered across its surface. Was it salvation or another trap? "Please, Mommy, I'm scared." The edge of Ella's voice launched fresh waves of guilt into Karen's already heavy heart. She glanced back at the dark forms closing in. Their greenish eyes glinted hungrily. It was unbearable. "Just a little further," she urged, but as they neared, the door pulled away in her mind. Heart racing, Karen pushed it open. This time, it swung wide without resistance. They stumbled into a vast room lined with chalkboards covered in swirling black ink. Strange symbols and haunting scribbles twisted and looped, mocking any hints of understanding. The air was thick with something tangible, darkness hanging like a curtain, suffocating yet alive. "What is this place?" Ella gasped, eyes darting. The door slammed shut behind them with a bone-rattling thud, sparking static in the air. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them, now a frantic chant. "Stay, join us." "No. No!" Karen shouted, trying to drown out the noise, her voice rising against the cacophony. Adrenaline surged through her veins, sharpening her focus. A chilling draft whispered past her, fluttering her hair. She stared at the chalkboards, feeling the dread deepen as they pulsed, almost breathing. Suddenly, a shadow broke free, rushing towards them. "Mommy!" Ella screamed, pulling at Karen, but she couldn't take her eyes off the figure emerging, a tortured soul, half-formed, eyes hollow but bright, spreading immense fear. "Join us," it echoed, the space vibrating with its malicious intent. "Back away!" Karen shouted, stepping protectively in front of Ella. In that moment, she felt the weight of her decision pressing down harder. How long could they run? As the being lunged forward, Karen envisioned the sanctuary of light just beyond the door. The choice before her tightened her chest. "We have to fight!" she shouted, gripping the closest chalkboard, the cold surface sending a shiver through her arm. A thrum of energy pulsed from it, connecting to the whispers, somehow drowning them out. She could feel the flicker of hope, the symbols beginning to glow faintly under her touch. "Mommy, what's happening?" Ella whimpered, clinging to her leg, but Karen didn't have a moment to reply. The shadow lunged again, and she slammed her palm against the chalkboard, feeling a rush of understanding. The whispers turned desperate, a cacophony that faded into one final scream. Karen's mind raced. If she could use the board, if she could channel the energy. But would it be enough? The being paused, horror shifting into confusion as light surged from the blackboard. Suddenly, the shadows wavered like smoke in a breeze, whispering frantically, "This isn't over, you are not safe, your fate is sealed." The room quaked and Karen stared into the glowing symbols, desperate for a solution, yet fear gripped her heart. What if they unleashed something worse? "Mommy!" Ella cried, voice laced with panic again. "Hold on to me, Ella. Just hold on tight." But as the light expanded, she could see the hallway behind them bending like a funhouse mirror, the exit fading. In that horrifying moment, a terrible realization washed over her. They were trapped in a cycle, caught in a game much older than they were, the darkness somehow more alive than they dared to believe, and just as everything seemed ready to collapse, the shadows whispered conspiracies of deeper horrors. "You're not the first and you won't be the last." With a thunderous crash, the world around them shattered. What awaited them on the other side? Karen's heart raced as the world around them splintered like glass, light and darkness swirling into a chaotic tempest. She felt Ella clutching her hand, the small warmth anchoring her as everything erupted. The shadows hissed their threat, fading and growing, twisting in ways that were both beautiful and terrifying. "No! Get away from us!" Karen screamed, her voice rising above the cacophony. In that moment of chaos, she felt an unusual surge of power blossoming from within her. The symbols on the chalkboard glowed fiercely, pulsating with an energy that felt alive. It was as if the very darkness she feared was trembling before her. Use it. Fight. A voice echoed in her thoughts, a strong pulse resonating with her maternal instinct. It was a voice she didn't recognize but felt completely. Without thinking, she thrust her hands forward, channeling all her fear and love into the warmth radiating from the chalkboard. The shadows screeched, recoiling from her as if scalded by fire. Join us. You cannot resist. They chanted, their myriad voices blending into a sinister hum that vibrated through the air. Every whisper threatened to pull her back into darkness, but this time, Karen held fast. She squeezed Ella's hand tighter and shouted, "We will not join you. We choose to be free." Light erupted from the chalkboard, cutting through the tangible grip of despair. It shot out in beams, illuminating the room and scattering the darkness into fragments. The shadowy figures wailed, their forms dissipating like smoke in the wind, unraveling their ghastly power. For the first time, Karen felt the tides shift. Fear transformed into determination, the air electric with a sense of purpose. "Come on, sweetheart. Run," she urged. Hand in hand, they fled toward the door. The shadows behind them screamed, scornful and furious, clawing at every step they took away from the dark domain. As they reached the door, Karen flung it open wide, sunlight streaming in like a long-awaited embrace. It was the warming glow she had yearned for, pure and innocent, a stark contrast to what they had just escaped. They stumbled into the world outside, gasping, feeling the warmth wash over their skin. Breathless, they stood in the sunlit yard of their home, a place that once was nothing but echoes of laughter and safety. The sky above them was blue, unmarred by the terrors they had just endured. But was it truly over? "Mommy?" Ella looked up at her, eyes wide with wonder and fear, still clutching tightly to the remnants of the nightmare they had escaped. Karen knelt down, pulling her daughter close, holding her like a fragile treasure. "It's over, baby. We made it. We're safe now." But in her heart, a chilling truth lingered. It wasn't truly over. The shadows may have been cast back for now, but their whispers hung heavy in the air. Around them, the neighborhood began to return to life, neighbors wandering outside, children laughing, but the air felt different, tainted by the darkness they barely escaped. Could it remain a mere memory? Would the whispers find a way to enter their lives again? As that dread coiled deeper within her, she felt Ella stir in her arms. "We've got to tell everyone, Mommy. We can't just forget." "Yes." Karen agreed fiercely, determination igniting the fire in her heart once more. "We'll show them what it means to fight for light. We can't silence what happened. This will be our strength." As they stood in unity, the shadows retreated, swirling like echoes back into the forgotten corners of their minds. They were free for now, but Karen knew this battle had to be fought again for all those who had been lost to the darkness. They would not be forgotten. Together, they would raise their voices, bound not just by fear, but by love and resilience. The horror may have returned, but they were ready to confront it, and with that realization, Karen felt the tightening grip of fear loosen. The sun shone brighter as she pressed her daughter closer, knowing that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, and somewhere deep within the roots of Maplewood. The whispers retreated but lingered, waiting, watching for the moment when they might strike again. Before that darkness had a chance of finding them, you need to act right now, friends. Hit that subscribe button immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive story that dives even deeper into the mysteries beyond. Smash that like button now. Your support fuels these tales. And please, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I can't wait to hear what you think. Finally, wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this chilling conclusion. True fans know how vital it is to keep this community alive.